Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Today on the show, we're just going to talk about Korea Baseball Organization, the professional baseball league there in South Korea. They just started their season a couple days ago, and the games are being broadcast on ESPN and ESPN2. So if you're craving baseball, I believe they're showing a couple games every day live and then a rebroadcast of one of them a midday, depending on where you are in the United States. But this is one of the top professional baseball leagues in the world. You probably have Major League Baseball, the Japanese Baseball League, and then the Korean Baseball League ranked in that order as the top three. You could make an argument there. The Mexican League is very good. There's a good league in Cuba as well. But it's a really solid product. They play the game well. And it's fun to watch, so check it out. So I'm going to keep this episode fairly baseball focused, and I'll probably address my cousin Amy's questions about rules and laws on tomorrow's episode, so stay tuned for that. All right, guys, let's start the show. Okay, so first of all, you might be wondering, why are they allowed to play baseball in South Korea now when we are not allowed to here in the United States? Is it really safe enough? Well, there's a big reason here. South Korea is pretty far ahead of the United States and a lot of other countries in their containment of the COVID virus. In 2015, they had some issues with the MERS outbreak there, and the government decided to change some laws to address those problems and any future epidemics or pandemics that they would have to deal with. So basically in South Korea, there was an outbreak in Daegu among these church members. They attacked it, they locked down the country, and they were able to contain the spread of the virus pretty well. So the Koreans really went at it three ways. First of all, because of laws that had been passed, they were able to avoid the red tape when it came to testing. When they made that initial COVID diagnosis in Daegu, in a couple of days, they had already tested thousands of people. So that testing really helped them out, the ability to test quickly and to test widespread. But they also had the ability to contact trace really well. There is a law in Korea that if there is an epidemic, they can look at CCTV video without a warrant. That's closed circuit TV, that's like security cameras and things like that in public and in private. They're also allowed to look at your cell phone and GPS records to trace exactly where you were if you are diagnosed with the virus. So what that enables them to do is get a really good idea of where you've been and who you've come in contact with. Then they also have this system set up where they will send out texts to the public, letting them know exactly where these people were. The other thing that the Koreans did really well, the third thing, is they triaged the care of these COVID patients effectively. So if you had the virus and you were very sick, you were sent to a hospital, you were isolated. If it was determined you had the virus and you weren't that sick, you stayed home, you isolated. But it was those three measures, the widespread quick testing, the contact tracing, and then the overall quality of the triaging of the care for the COVID patients that really made a big difference there. If you look back at the numbers there in South Korea, they were quickly the first country to surpass China in COVID cases. It was in March, they had seen about 90 deaths. But then in the month of April, they only ended up seeing 85 deaths. If you compare that to the United States, in the month of April, we saw 62,000 deaths. Now, Korea is a country of 50 plus million people, so it's not exactly a tiny country. It's very compact, it's very dense. But through the measures that they took and the laws that they had passed, you can see why it is that they were so effective in containing this virus compared to, say, the United States. So anyway, that's why they're at a point right now, I think, where they feel comfortable playing these games. But just be aware, if even one single player in the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization, we're going to call it the KBO moving forward, if even one player tests positive, they've got to shut the entire league down for 3 weeks. So that's a possibility. So you might not want to get too invested in the KBO. All right, so I'm going to give you a little rundown of the KBO, the teams, where they're located, and what this is all about. But before we do that, I just want to quickly answer a question from an old coworker of mine, Coco, working there at Mass General Hospital. Thank you for your service, Coco. She wanted to know if it's true if they have computer screen faces in the stands in these KBO games. No, Coco, I don't know where you've heard that from. I haven't seen that as far as I know. There was one team, they were in Incheon, the SK Wyverns. They placed banners in the stands with faces printed on them of fake fans, but nothing as elaborate as computer screen faces or like tablets mounted in the stands to mimic fandom. That would be extremely expensive and just rather silly. They do have cheerleaders, however, Coco, in the KBO. Cheerleaders that usually get the crowd singing and chanting and riled up. At this point, they're there just to support the players, I suppose, and to be broadcast on television as well. But no. No computer screen faces in the stands, Coco. Thanks for the question, though. One more little tidbit, just a little FYI. In Korea, they usually say their family name first, their last name first. We tend not to do that in the United States. Let me give you an example here. There's a great first baseman that played in Korea for a long time. He still is playing in the league, actually, who came over and played for the Seattle Mariners for a season, Dae-Ho Lee. He had a great season, 14 homers, hit like 250. But in Korea, his name would be said Lee Dae-Ho, not Dae-Ho Lee. Lee Dae-Ho, not Dae-Ho Lee. So that's how they do it in Korea. They say the family name first and then your given name second. You'll notice this if you're watching some of the games, perhaps. I don't know if the American announcers will do this. That's the proper way to say a Korean name. So let's start here in the United States, but let's go ahead and pop on over the pond here, head across the Pacific. And here we have South Korea. We can zoom in here. Great country, beautiful country. I visited my friend there a few years back when he was living in Busan teaching English. Of course, you have China over here to the east of South Korea. And westerly, we have Japan. So South Korea, we see the some of the biggest cities in South Korea. We've got Seoul, Incheon, Gwangju, Daejeon, Busan. But let's start this little tour here up in the Seoul area. This is the capital of South Korea, the cultural center. And the two big teams in Seoul are the Doosan Bears and the LG Twins. They both play at the same stadium, the Jamsil Baseball Stadium. The Doosan Bears are the defending champions in the KBO. They won the Korean Series last year. They're considered sort of like the Dodgers of the KBO, consistently good, very well-run organization. They win championships fairly consistently and have a very strong fan base. And the other team here that plays at the Jamsil Baseball Stadium is the LG Twins. They're also a very good team. Now, they tend to underperform. They're kind of known as like a pre-2004 Red Sox kind of team. They've won a few championships, but it's been a while. They're known to consistently make it in the playoffs, but not make it to the championship game. But still a very good team. They actually have a larger fan base than the Doosan Bears. So this is probably Seoul's most popular team. And the Twins and the Bears there have this little rivalry going back and forth. But there's a third team here that's in Seoul, the Kiwoom Heroes. Well, this is kind of an upstart, newer team. They're thought of similarly to the Tampa Bay Rays. They have a more Western American style of play, not so conservative and defense-oriented. They're considered one of the favorites this season. This should be a breakout year for them. So now these are our three Seoul, South Korea baseball teams. But before we move further, I want to address something here. You'll notice that these teams aren't named after the city. The teams are actually named after the corporations that own them. So they have their mascots, the Bears, the Twins, the Heroes. But then you have that corporation's name before it. So Kiwoom, Doosan, LG. We all know LG as an electronics company. They make phones and tablets and things like that. But Doosan and Kiwoom are these conglomerates. It's a very important part of the Korean business culture. They have these things called chaebols. Chaebol basically just means conglomerate. It's a business that really owns a bunch of different things, dips their hands in a bunch of different kinds of industries. They might make electronics, they might sell textiles, they might trade. But the chaebol concept is very important in Korean culture and in the context of the Korean economy. So most of these teams are named after these chaebol business conglomerates. And from Seoul, here we can move over to the west just a few miles to Incheon, right here. This is where the big international airport is. over there across the water, Incheon International. Here in Incheon, you have the SK Wyverns Baseball Club. Wyverns, again, is a type of dragon. It's a kind of a fun name. The name SK references SK Telecom, which is one of the big telecom companies in Korea. But yeah, the SK Wyverns, they're a newer team, not really expected to do much this year. There from Incheon, we can move down here to another sort of pseudo-suburb of Seoul, Suwon, which is directly south of Seoul. Now you can ride the Seoul subway system down to Suwon. Here in Suwon, we have the KT Wiz Baseball Club. KT is another telecom company. I believe it's the biggest in Korea, actually. And I don't know what the Wiz references. Perhaps wizards. They have these really cool black uniforms with sweet little logo on there. Seems like a pretty cool team. They're not really expected to do a whole lot this season either, though. From there, we pop back out here and let's head south, get away from the Seoul area, head down to another large South Korean city, Daejeon. So yeah, in Daejeon, we have the Hanwha Eagles. This is the lovable losers of the KBO, similar to the Chicago Cubs. But the Hanwha Eagles, well, they had some early success, have just not been able to do it in recent decades. So yeah, this is your Chicago Cubs of the KBO. And from Daejeon, then we head farther south to Gwangju on the western side of South Korea. Gwangju looks like a really cool, pretty little city, but this is the home of the Kia Tigers. The Kia Tigers are thought of as the New York Yankees of the KBO. They have won 11, count them 11 Korean Series championships. And while they're not expected to do great this season, this is the team that generally you expect will do well year in and year out. They have cool uniforms as well. And from Gwangju, then we'll head east over towards Busan. This is the city on the southeast coast of South Korea where my good friend Ben lived for many years. I visited him there. It's a very beautiful city. Big port, one of the biggest ports in Asia. The Lotte Giants, one of the original 1982 KBO teams. They had some early success. They've become known in recent years as this team that likes to spend a good amount of money on players, but they still can't get over that hump and win a championship. They have a very strong fan base, and their stadium is kind of the Wrigley Field, the Fenway Park of the KBO. It's considered hallowed ground. They've been playing there since the get-go. Really cool looking stadium. And again, Busan's just a really cool city. And from Busan, we can just head over here quickly to a suburb there called Changwon. This is the home of the NC Dinos, one of the newer teams. It looks like a beautiful area. Now, the NC Dinos are a very new team. They're kind of an upstart. They're not expected to do a whole lot this year. NC is a video game development company. So not really one of these chaebol conglomerates, but a company that is known as video game developers. So if you're looking for a young, new team to root for, this might be a good one, the NC Dinos. And from here, we're going to head north from the Busan area up to Daegu. You've probably heard of Daegu in recent months. This is where the COVID outbreak started in South Korea before they were able to clamp down on it. Daegu, again, one of the largest cities in South Korea. Of course, here in Daegu, we have the Samsung Lions, another very good team, one of the original 1982 teams. They've had a lot of success, especially in recent years. It was in the 2000s that they won 4 championships in a row. This is a slick squad. They generally perform well, but they're changing things up, it looks like, this year, so who knows. Okay, guys, so there's your teams. Again, we've got the Doosan Bears, the LG Twins, and the Kiwoom Heroes. These are the favorites in the KBO this year. And then, of course, your upstart teams like the SK Wyverns and the KT Wiz, the NC Dinos. New teams, young teams, might be fun to root for. Then, of course, these classic teams, Hanwha Eagles, the Kia Tigers, Lotte Giants, and the Samsung Lions. With strong history and pedigree, these teams are really cool. So there you have it, folks. The KBO, Korea Baseball Organization. There's your teams. Pick one, root for them. Games are on every day on ESPN and ESPN2, so tune in. So I hope you all are doing well. Stay safe, stay sane, and we'll see you tomorrow.